surprised me with divorce papers and vanished 2 days after he agreed to open our relationship. Hey Reddit, I am Martha, 35, female, married to Jay, 41, male, for 2 years now. My marriage was okay to explain in one simple word. It was convenient as we got used to living with each other. There was nothing much exciting happening in our lives. I had this weird idea, so I suggested that maybe if we could open our relationship and have more people get involved both emotionally and physically, then our marriage might get better. Well, that is where exactly the problem started. I could never have guessed that such a suggestion would turn my boring and mundane life into a roller coaster. Let's start with where it all began so that you guys get an idea of what I am rambling on about and probably also help with giving me better advice. I met Jay and initially did not find him interesting at all. He was a boring banker, but since I was going through a financial slump, I guess I found him interesting and decided to date him. I just needed some good financial advice to help me get through my expenses and budgeting. We kept meeting often, and he ended up proposing just 3 months into our relationship, if you could call it that. I was still coping with bad financial decisions and thought that it would be better to get married and have someone else deal with my problems. I knew that it was terrible to marry someone because of a crisis you are in, but I really did not know what else to do. We got married, sex was all right, and the rest of everything was okay. There was nothing to complain about because Jay would take care of the expenses, the heavy-duty stuff, and everything else that you would expect a man to do around the house. I was relieved that I didn't have to do everything all by myself, and that I had someone to rely on both physically and financially. I did enjoy being the perfect housewife, cooking meals for my husband and waiting for him to get back from work so that we could have dinner together while watching TV. There basically was nothing that I could complain about. After a point, it all became so boring. There was not much fun in doing the same thing every day. It was always the same cooking, laundry, and organizing. Not that Jay did not help me when he could, but it was more like I could do all of this even with my eyes closed. I felt as if I was just going through the motions and not living my life. I decided to change all this. I had a lot of free time after I put all the systems in place to function around the house. My neighbor, Catherine, who was also a housewife, suggested that I join their kitty club. I did not mind as I didn't really have anything going on at home. For the first 2 months, I really enjoyed that since it was something new, and I wasn't getting bored sitting at home. I couldn't take it after a few months because it was all about whining sessions of wives talking about how bad the husband is. They kept competing with each other to win the award of the most miserable wife. Of course, I had nothing to share or add to anything that they would talk about. My marriage wasn't great, but I didn't have anything to complain about, and Jay was not a bad husband, unlike the stories other women told. I started distancing myself as it was getting too toxic. I did make one good friend from all of that. Catherine was not only my neighbor, but also my confidant. We both shared any problems or issues that we had in our lives with each other. After the kitty club, we decided to give our health a priority, so we started going to the gym. Catherine started dating one of our gym instructors. He obviously had a good body and a better stamina than her husband, but it was still cheating. Catherine kept encouraging me to do something adventurous because we both knew that we could easily get away with it. I did not want to give in to the temptation because I believed in my marriage and I could never cheat on Jay. However bad my marriage was, it wasn't worth cheating. I let Catherine do her thing and did not judge her for the fact that she was cheating on her husband. As days went by, Catherine started spending less time with me and more time with her new lover. I did not blame her for it, and I was happy to see her happy. Very soon I was alone again and back to my boring life. I quit going to the gym as it was no fun doing workouts alone while Catherine was banging the instructor in the bathrooms. I was feeling as if Jay and I have been living the same life every day. I just wanted some change and not to continue living a boring life. I discussed this with one of my friends who I knew was previously having similar problems, and now she was very happy with her marriage. I kind of felt that she would be the right person to take advice from. She told me that one thing that helped her and her husband get on the same page was when they decided to open their marriage. She looked at my expression and told me that it worked for her, and I could give it a try. Nothing to lose to try and help my marriage work, right? It was better than cheating on Jay. He would know what was going on in my life, and it would not make me look like a bad person. I needed to do something drastic to make sure we don't continue living like this. I was sure that I did not want to do anything by hiding or keeping it away from Jay. Since he had always been a good husband, I wanted to be as good a wife as I could be. The thought of opening my marriage kept running in my head. It was stuck like a bad song, and was hard to not keep thinking about it. I started reading articles on the advantages of having an open marriage. Most of the articles mentioned that it helps in some of the cases for the husband and wife to open up with each other. The more I read, the more I could see that it might work for us. I'd not like it when I initially heard it from my friend, but after reading and knowing a few facts, I thought we could give it a try. Opening up about our desires and exploring the possibility of an open marriage seemed like a potential solution to the stagnation we were experiencing. The articles also emphasized the importance of communication and trust, which made me hopeful that it could strengthen our relationship rather than tear it apart. I made up my mind to talk to Jay over the weekend. I made sure that I make the surroundings and the environment perfect for him, so when we have this conversation, it gets easier for him to agree to it. I started with how I had been feeling lately and that it was not his fault. I would like to try something new that would help us rekindle our love for each other. I explained to him what I had in mind and told him we would only go ahead if he would be okay with the suggestion. He did not speak for a good 2 minutes, and my heart was beating so fast as I did not know if he actually understood what I was trying to say. After what felt like 2 decades, he finally spoke and asked me if this was something that he believed would make me happy. I told him that I'm not really sure, but this is something new which we could try out and see how it goes. I also explained to him that it would have been so easy for me to cheat on him without his knowledge, but that would break the trust between us. I guess saying that helped him make up his mind and agree to my suggestion. Well, I must say it went very smoothly, which was something I wasn't expecting. I thought it would be a long, never-ending conversation with lots of screaming, shouting, and probably accusations of me already cheating on him. Instead, it was a very calm and short conversation, which ended on a positive note. I was very happy with the way things were going and was expecting to see some new changes in my life going forward. The next day, I got up with a lot of enthusiasm. I was in a great mood imagining all the things that could happen. I installed a bunch of dating apps to look for prospective men and women who we could invite to spend time with us. Obviously, I did not want it just for myself, as I wanted even Jay to have some fun. I knew that he wouldn't get the time to look, so I decided to help him with that. I mentioned to Jay over breakfast about dating apps being the safest place to find the right kind of people who would be willing to get into relationships with married couples. He looked disinterested and told me to do whatever I thought was right. I couldn't understand if he was happy with the decision or just didn't know how to go about it. I was sure that he would have raised any objections when we were discussing it. Maybe he just wanted me to keep myself busy, which would help me not feel bored all the time. He seemed pretty normal as he got ready for work, kissed me goodbye, and left. I chatted with a lot of people, and one guy piqued my interest. I spoke to him and clearly explained to him the situation I was in. He had no issues if I was married, divorced, or bisexual, as all he wanted was to have sex. I confirmed that we could meet after 2 days at my house and sent him the details. When Jay came home in the evening, I was very excited to break this news to him. I told him I found a person who was willing to get into a relationship with me after I explained to him the entire situation. Jay told me that he was happy to see me happy. We had lots of sex at night after a really long time. I was so tired and I don't even remember when I dozed off. I woke up very late in the morning and realized that Jay had already left for work. I made my way to the kitchen and saw a note left by Jay. It mentioned some papers that were important and kept in the study. Jay mentioned that it was important for me to take a look at them. I went to the study and pulled out the papers. I felt like I was dreaming and all of this was not real. How could Jay have divorce papers, and that too already with the signatures on them? I was unable to believe what I was seeing. I ran to our bedroom and grabbed my phone. I tried calling Jay, but his phone was switched off and he did not even show up at work. I had no idea where he had gone and how to reach him. I have been trying to reach Jay all day. After giving up, I needed some place where I could channelize my anger and frustration. So I started writing this post to express my feelings and also know what went wrong in my marriage to lead to this. I guess this is what happens when you try to have it all. I believe that I was getting too crazy by expecting to be able to have a loving husband at home to take over all the financial responsibility, and also have a lover on the second hand who would treat me like a queen and shower me with all his love. Thank you all for taking time to read such a long post. I really appreciate you giving time to a stranger to read their story. If anyone has any idea how to come out of this screw up, please let me know so that I can fix it. I am okay with living a boring married life as long as I am able to save my marriage. Any help and suggestions would be appreciated. Update. Thank you all for listening to my story and also sending tremendous amounts of advice on what I should be doing going forward. Let me start off by saying that I have been going through all the phases of betrayal that every person goes through. The first week I was in denial and was very confident that Jay would be back. He was maybe taking this time to process all of this information that I had dumped on him. Obviously, it was not an easy decision for him to be okay with sharing his wife with someone else. I was very confident that he would think this through and come back to me once he had made up his mind. As the days started passing by, my confidence started dipping, and by the end of the week, I was sure that he might not come back. I tried reaching his phone, his office, his friends, and the bars he frequented, but nobody had any idea of his whereabouts. I sent him tons of voicemails asking him to forget everything and just come back home. I was even willing to continue living this boring life if my suggestion had hurt his feelings. I had become so lethargic that all I did was wake up in the morning, have my coffee, lie on the couch, and binge Netflix shows. I did not feel like doing anything or even taking a shower. It was almost 10 days since Jay had gone away. I walked outside the house to get the garbage bins when I checked the mailbox and saw a letter from Jay addressed to me. I was elated as I grabbed it and rushed inside to open it. Maybe it was an apology with flight tickets to someplace exciting. It had a letter which was handwritten by Jay. I started reading it, and tears started flowing through my eyes, making the letter wet. Jay mentioned that he had been having an affair 6 months into our marriage. When I decided to talk to him about opening our marriage, he felt guilty and could not face me anymore. So he decided to make arrangements for a divorce and give me the freedom to live my life. He told me that he had applied for a transfer to a different city where he will be moving with his girlfriend. He said that he had made arrangements to make sure I get regular money to handle my expenses. He told me that there were a lot of times that he wanted to let me know about his affair and end our marriage. I looked so happy that he couldn't bring himself to break my heart. He also confirmed that there was no way he could come back in my life as he and his girlfriend were expecting their first baby in a couple of months. He asked me not to blame myself for our divorce as it was not my fault. Even if I wouldn't have brought up the opening marriage stuff, he would still have sent the divorce papers. The rest of it was all the same. Him asking me to forgive him for the affair and also apologizing for causing all these problems. He also sent me a check along with the letter to help me with my expenses. I was so angry that I wanted to rip the check apart, but I knew that I would need the money. I just sat on the floor reading the letter again and again and hoping that all this was a prank. I saw the stamp on the letter, which was from a different state, so this was definitely not a prank. I started screaming in anger and crying loudly. How could I have been so dumb that I didn't even know about Jay having an affair for almost the entire time of us being married? How did his love just fade away within 6 months? I did not know if I was the problem or he was. Never once did I doubt him. He was the perfect husband. He did everything I asked him to without making a fuss. Maybe that was the cue that I missed. Even when I was in that stupid kiddie club, all the wives kept complaining about how their husbands spent more time with their mistresses and not with their wives. I did not even pick up clues from them about Jay having an affair. At least they knew that their husbands were having affairs. I was too naive to think that Jay would not be like the other husbands. I was so wrong, and I was such a fool that even when I had the chance to cheat on Jay, I decided to be the loyal wife and not do anything that would ruin my marriage. I tried my best as a wife, even though it made me miserable, but never once did I think of doing anything that would jeopardize my marriage. After all of this, here I was, sitting with the letter from my husband confessing about his affair that had been going on for about 2 years, which I had no clue about. I did not know if Jay was too good to hide this affair, or I was just too blinded to think that he was not capable of having an affair. The next few weeks were me being very busy with trying to move out all the stuff from the house. I did not want to live in the same house anymore. For the time being, I would be moving into a motel and then figure it out from there. I knew that things were going to be very difficult going forward. I didn't have a job or a place to live and had no clue what to do with my life. I never expected that I would be in a financial slump once again after being married. I was still holding on to the divorce papers as I knew that signing them would mean giving up on my marriage. I also knew that without a divorce, Jay could not marry his girlfriend. That was the only bright side out of all this mess. I was holding the last straw to my marriage. At times, I did not find any point in holding on to those papers when I knew that Jay never loved me anymore. Sometimes I would get wicked thoughts in my head that would ask me to make Jay suffer for what he had done to me. I was so messed up that even my thoughts did not align with the person I was. I wrote an email to Jay asking him to meet me if he really wanted me to divorce him. Unless he met me in person, I was not willing to sign the papers that he needed so badly to marry his girlfriend. He was very hesitant at first, but finally gave in. I made sure to book a fancy restaurant as I wanted him to spend a lot of money. He was punctual as always. I was meeting him after almost a month, but he looked too cold. I asked him how he was doing, but he told me that he did not have enough time and wanted to cut to the chase. He asked me point blank what it would take or need for me to sign the divorce papers. I was taken aback by his cold behavior towards me. As far as I remember, he was the one who cheated on me while I did nothing of that sort. So why was he being so tall and proud about it? I told him that I could drag him to court for infidelity if he was going to continue treating me this way. He gave me a laugh of confidence and told me that a court case would only mean that I would have to hire a lawyer, for which I did not have the money, and also spend a lot of time on the case, which would not let me find a job. He would hardly be losing any money or time, but I would be the one who would be losing a lot of things. He asked me to be very practical and not make an emotional decision. He was willing to give me the money and a job, but in return, all he wanted was for me to sign the divorce papers. I knew that it was not a bad deal because there was no way that Jay would be coming back to me even if I decided not to divorce him. I knew that either today or tomorrow the outcome would be the same and we would be ending up in divorce. It was better to take the money and the job that would at least help me be independent going forward. I pulled out the papers, signed them, and before I could even say something, Jay grabbed the papers from my hand and left. It was as if I was dealing with a debtor whom I had paid off the money that I owed. I went home and stood under the shower with cold water running all over my body, making it numb. I did not want to feel any pain and started crying at how my life turned out. Just a month ago, I was a bored housewife who wanted some action and adventure. Today, I was divorced and standing under the shower crying about not being that bored housewife anymore. Life can be so unpredictable. Until a month ago, I wasn't satisfied with being a bored housewife and wanted something more. But today, I was weeping because I wanted to be exactly that bored housewife for the rest of my life. Like people say, you are never satisfied with what you have until you lose it. I guess today I've completely understood the meaning of what it meant. To everyone who has been a part of my journey for the last 1 month, I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being invested. To anyone who thinks that their life is boring and there's not much happening, I would like to suggest that you hold on to it. Try to appreciate the things you have rather than crippling about making changes, which would probably ruin everything. I would like people out there to learn from my mistakes and not to be too greedy. Also, try to regularly keep a check on your partners to make sure that if things are boring, then is there any reason for it? Basically, all I want to say is just don't be dumb like me and pick up clothes when you see them. I hope all of you have wonderful and happy relationships for a lifetime. Hoping to find my happy ending soon. Thank you for all the love.